Hello, my name is Brian Houston. This is Ryan Petersen along with us. For lack of a better name at the moment, we're going to call this Bryan and Ryan.
Very creative.
Thank you very much. We both are in Tyler, Texas. We both have a radio TV background for those who don't know about us. And believe me, I'm on the downhill side of an extremely mediocre career. Ryan, he's still got his whole future in front of him. So anyway, we both have been really chomping at the bit to talk about sports, but nobody in our own home wants to hear anything we have to say. So we decided we would do this mostly for therapy for ourselves. Ryan, first of all, I'm honored to do this with you. And I know your family is extremely excited about you possibly wading into doing this on a regular basis, right?
Yeah, when they heard that I was going to possibly be on YouTube, they were very excited. And my girls are only at the age, my youngest, she was a baby when I left TV. So she never actually got to watch me. Izzy, she was about 5, so she remembers a little bit. But yeah, Daniela she didn't get to watch Daddy on TV. So seeing me on his camera on screen, she was excited about that.
Well, just keep in mind, hand puppets, stick figure drawings, that'll work. It worked great with the 5-year-old crowd, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
My son is an adult now. He grew up with me on television, at least in his younger years, and could care less. He wanted to watch Blue's Clues. So there you go. As we get ready to get started, I do want to make this disclaimer that the opinions that come out of this orifice are strictly my own, no one else's. They will show very quickly how low my IQ is, but I want to make sure that I am speaking strictly for myself and no one else, Ryan included.
Yeah, same. And when you've been a sports guy in broadcasting, you have a lot of opinions typically. So I have a lot of opinions. I haven't been able to express those in a while because I haven't had the platform. So yes, these are my opinions alone.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about what life has been like in COVID-19. You and I both have a sports background. I've got 40 years of radio and TV. I spent a lot of that in sports. Even when I was in news, I was still doing football play-by-play. You were a sportscaster for, 12, 15, 20 years, something like that. So when everything shut down, the darkest day in my life was the canceling of March Madness, which is maybe my favorite sporting event every year. That 3 weeks to me is just magical. When they shut that down before it could happen, I went into a deep funk that lasted until like mid-August automatically. How did you respond when everything got shut down, and what did you do to fill the void during all this time when we didn't have live sports?
Well, the one thing it showed me that I guess I had never really thought about is how little live television I watch if it's not sports. Because basically, I wasn't watching TV. I did, my wife and I watched a couple series on the side, but there wasn't as much TV. And, as someone that grew up playing sports and getting to cover sports, I love competition. And it was like you kind of said, it was just this big void, almost surreal, because if you ever had a bad week or you needed something to look forward to, you could always look forward to that big game on Friday or Saturday night, or even, a midweek game to break it up. And to not have that any night, no matter what it was hard as someone that's loved sports his whole life.
What I found it to really do to my life was that it made me not know what day of the week it was. When you didn't have anything to watch on a Saturday or Sunday, there was nothing that delineated those days from any other day of the week. So I didn't know if I was getting up on a Saturday and it was a Tuesday. There was just nothing going on. And honestly, I have to give ESPN and some of those networks some credit because they took the advantage to do some great documentaries, things like The Last Dance that were really good to try to fill that void. But there, at the same time, how many times can you watch the World Cornhole Championship? So one thing I did learn is that I could live without sports. I had no choice. So I could live without the sports on the weekends or at night, things like that. But I did miss it.
Yeah.
But what did you learn out of that time when you didn't have it?
I did I did feel like it got to a point like I really missed it at the beginning. But then the longer it went, you did kind of feel like, there is more to life. So but again, that's not to say I didn't miss it, because as soon as anything came back on, I was excited to get back and watch it. But you did start to really understand it's not as important, maybe, as I've made it out to be, as someone. I mean, like, both of us in many ways have dedicated a large part of our lives to sports and covering it. And I do, but the other thing, I also think on the reverse side, sports to me has brought out a lot of good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a platform for unity, and people maybe you have nothing in common with, and you getting behind something together.
Sure.
And I did miss that. And again, competition, I think, is such an important thing. Learning how to win and learning how to lose, and the highs and lows that come with it, and even being a fan. So ultimately, I missed it a lot, but yeah, I got to a point where I was like, well, I guess I can keep going, because it looked like for a while we didn't know we were going to get anything back.
Couple of things that happened for me, and I'll be honest, in the spring and summer, I've gotten to the point in my life where if the Mavericks are not contenders, I don't care about the NBA very much. If the Rangers are not, you know, in contention, I don't really care about MLB that much. I'm not just going to sit down and watch any game just because it's on. I may have it on. I may watch something in the background if we get to the finals or the World Series, but I'm not the avid watch everything every minute of the day. First of all, because my wife would kill me, because she'd want the TV back. But back when you were a kid, you could absorb stats and just everything. But in the old man get off my lawn period that I'm in now, I don't like what the games have become. I don't like the style of basketball now that's played. I don't like all the analytics in baseball. I don't like that a guy can make billions of dollars hitting 190 as long as he hits 50 home runs and drives in 100 RBIs, but he can't, that it might be 12 days between hits. So those kinds of things frustrate me. The thing that really frustrated me was that, given the situation that we were in with COVID-19, to watch the major league owners and players bicker over money during that time was about as tone deaf as anything I could ever hear. So that turned me off even more to the idea of baseball coming back. You?
Yeah, and honestly, baseball, unless maybe, my wife's family lives in Houston, so,
Mm-hmm.
occasionally we might drive down to go to an Astros game. But unless we're just randomly driving down to go to a game, I would never get into baseball mode until we were getting close to the end of the regular season, following the playoff chase and then the playoffs. So I felt like baseball missed such a golden opportunity, because if they would have started earlier, they would have had the entire sports world to themselves.
That's right.
And sports fans were desperate for it. And instead, I feel like they really dropped the ball. And Brian, I don't know about you, but to me, and I know, they're talking about ratings, and NBA and other sports haven't been as good, but baseball, I mean, I honestly haven't even been paying attention. I might, if the Rangers are on, I might just check to see the score, but they're not getting the coverage. And, I've actually, I love sports. I love playoffs. And I've been watching the NHL and the NBA playoffs, and getting excited and ready for hopefully college, and then the NFL. The NFL starts here in a week. So with Patrick Mahomes. So I feel like MLB, they were tone deaf at that time, and I feel like they dropped the ball, because they could have had that, maybe even got some fans they didn't have before, and they just didn't take advantage of it.
It just seemed so incredibly tone deaf when you had people losing jobs and businesses failing, and for them to be bickering over those kinds of things instead of trying to put that aside to play. So when sports returned, and it all kind of came at once. Next thing you know, you've got the NBA players in the bubble. Just shortly after that, Major League Baseball is going to go ahead and try it. I'd already watched a NASCAR race, which I couldn't believe I had done. Left turn, left turn, left turn, left turn for 3 hours, and with no fans. But and I had watched a little golf. So I did enjoy that. But what did you think about, or how do you feel about the way first of all, the NBA coverage has gone on television with no fans, with virtual fans and screens, playing in a convention hall at Disney World?
I think it's looked really good for what I thought it was going to look like, because when I knew there weren't going to be any fans, all I could think about was, the fans add so much atmosphere to a game, and what is this going to look like? But the way that they've set it up, I really think Disney, ESPN, TNT that have been I think they've done a good job with the NBA in making it look like a good TV product. I actually think the virtual fan screens are kind of a nice touch. It's something different. People can get on there maybe that wouldn't be able to go to a game otherwise. So that actually hasn't hindered the experience for me. I do think it has affected the game because you don't have a home court advantage anymore. Mm-hmm. So in terms of competitive balance, but for me, watching as a fan, I thought it was going to be way different. And for me personally, I watch games and I kind of forget that there isn't a crowd because, the TV product to me looks pretty good.
The one time that I had that old feeling was Game 4, the Mavericks and the Clippers, when Doncic was putting on his show and then hit that half-court shot, nothing but net to win the ball game. And the crowd noise was, they did a great job of the piped-in fake crowd noise being perfect level, the players going crazy. I was going crazy. My son called me from Baton Rouge. He's 23. He said he was running around the room, and I thought, okay, this captured the feel. Okay. Yeah. So once the Mavericks were out of it, I'll watch some of it, but I'm a casual NBA fan. So if there may be some games if I happen to sit down and watch for a while, but it's not appointment TV for me. Unless there's just nothing else on, particularly Sunday afternoons when I've got the opportunity to not have to argue over the remote, then I can watch something if I want to. Baseball, what did you think? What have you thought about no people in the stands? To me, it seems like it's a little Apocalypse Now kind of feeling when you got nobody in the stands, even though they've got crowd noise in there.
Yeah, to me, baseball has been completely different than basketball because because of the way a baseball field is constructed in the camera, you can't help but see that it's empty. A basketball court, you can, get the shot focused on the court, a bench, and that's it. Baseball has felt very empty. The cardboard cutouts and stuff, they were kind of funny and cool at the beginning, and now it's just kind of sad. And when guys are blasting home runs into empty seats, it's not. And then I actually saw there were people complaining on social media the other day about, like, they haven't been, like you talked about how they did a great job piping in the noise perfectly with Luka's shot. They haven't been doing that with baseball. Mm-hmm. There was a game, someone was getting blown out, had given up 18 runs. And if a team's down by that many runs at home, it's going to be pretty quiet. And they had the noise piped up so loud. It was like, what are you doing? This is like the complete opposite of what actually would be going on. So I don't think they've mastered it as well. But baseball is just harder. Baseball is made for, the fan experience and, take me out to the ball game and sit in the crowd and have a beer and a hot dog, and just seeing nothing but empty seats in those big stadiums. That's why I think it's going to be interesting to see what the NFL looks like and college football when you get into these 60 and some of these college 100,000 seat stadiums.
Yeah.
And I know some are going to have some fans in them. Maybe that will help. But it'll definitely be different.
It's very weird. And again, I agree with you. Baseball season, I think about that going with my son to games and stuff, but he's gone now, so I don't do that as much. I would have loved to have experienced air conditioning in Arlington. That would have been great. But I just have not gotten caught up in the baseball. That's the other thing. My pattern of things is that I didn't acknowledge that the NBA existed until the college football playoff and the Super Bowl were over most times. I just didn't even pay attention before February because the
Right.
season's so long. Same thing goes with baseball. I didn't pay attention to baseball until at least the end of March Madness, you know, and then I would, catch the local team, the Rangers. Right now, you got all these teams, everything's playing together. You got the Stars, you got the hockey playoffs going on. You got baseball, you got NBA playoffs, all happening at the same time. College football already had a game this past weekend. As we do this on a Thursday evening, September the 3rd, they're going to have more games this weekend. So everything is piled together. So we went from nothing to now it's, like 3 games a day games in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's making the choice too about what is it you want to watch, and is anybody watching those daytime games?
Well, for someone like me that loves playoffs regardless of who's playing, a few weeks ago when the first round started and you had like 12:30 NBA and NHL games, it felt kind of like March Madness to me, and I actually loved that. But I do think that has probably caused some of the ratings drops. I mean, it's just sporadic, and like you said, you're having to pick what you're going to watch. But it was kind of crazy how we went from having nothing to like not only something but a lot of stuff going on at the same time all day.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a welcome change because I missed it.
We need the diversion.
Yeah.
We talked about the ratings are down for most of the sports now. Just as you mentioned before we started, a playoff game, the Rockets playoff game on Wednesday night had a great rating. So it does show you that when the games are big enough, if you got an intriguing matchup, people will watch. There are a lot of people, right or wrong, there are a lot of people turned off by the protests. You knew that was going to happen. I'm interested to see how that's going to be impacting the NFL's ratings, because the NFL ratings, people watch the NFL religiously.
Yeah.
And you just can't envision a scene where their ratings will fall. But now that it's pretty much wide open, that everybody's going to do what they're going to do in their pregame protests or demonstrations against racial injustice, I'm curious to see what impact that's going to have on viewership. Not to say that these players are wrong at all, just saying I'm curious to see what kind of backlash, or if there is a dip at all.
Well, I honestly don't think, look, it may suffer a little bit, but I think football is our pastime now. And there's so many people passionate about football. I think that the ratings are still going to be really good. And I've seen this throughout my life, even back when Colin Kaepernick first started his protest. You have a lot of big talkers that say they're done. I'm never watching again.
Mm-hmm.
And then guess what they're doing a week or two later when there's a big game. So
especially if their team was winning.
Yeah. So people like to talk a big game and act like they're going to do it. I think a lot of them, are just trying to sound like they're going to do it, and then they change their mind. Personally, I'm going to be watching. I love playing. I love watching the games, and they're entitled to protest. And basically, look, if you're a fan, you're going to have to get used to it, because the leagues have embraced it now.
That's it.
They're all in. So if that's going to cause you to not watch, then you're not going to be able to watch. Because here's the other thing too, you're going to run out of sports to watch, because basically every professional league is doing this.
Well, you just mentioned something that I used to tell people all the time. They would say, I'd say something about a particular actor. Well, he's too liberal, I'm not going to watch his movies. I said, if you're going to do that, if you're going to pick your entertainment based on that person's politics, you're not watching anything. You will
No.
not watch a TV show. You won't be able to listen to any music. I mean, there's nothing you're going to be able to enjoy if you can't set aside the politics part of it just for the entertainment value, because the majority of them are going to be, out there with their politics. And so it's just like you said with the sports. It is what it is now. It is going to be part of the culture. There's no getting around it, and there's no stopping it. So you either choose not to watch it. I choose to watch. I'm just not going to get caught up. And if I don't like something, it's not going to keep me from watching the game, because I'm like you. I love the sport. I love college football. That's my passion.
And one thing too, Bryan, and I'm not going to get political here,
Oh,
but
please.
as someone that has covered, and you've done the same, as someone that has covered and talked with professional athletes, I think a lot of times fans just view them strictly for their entertainment. And
The shut up and dribble crowd.
right. And it's like, when you develop relationships and you meet these guys, I mean, they're actual people,
Sir.
and these guys have concerns. And look, I fully back them standing up for they want social justice. Now, we can disagree about maybe what the actual problems are and what we need to change. I think, those conversations need to happen. But I'm not going to stop watching these amazing athletes because maybe I don't agree with a specific protest or a specific reason. I fully back their right to do it. And, in most cases, I've agreed with them. But I'm not going to stop watching these guys play a sport because, like you said, and if we're going to do that, it was funny. I heard this on one other radio station the other day. Fans were saying like they were going to stop watching the NBA and start watching the NHL, like they had never been watching hockey and how they were going to. Well, the NHL did the same thing. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, who are you going to watch? I mean, what's going to be left? I mean, NASCAR has jumped in on this.
Yeah.
I mean, PGA has, which has been a predominantly white sport forever. So I don't know what's going to be left for you to watch.
I'm with you. Okay, we got 10 minutes. So we're going to quickly turn to college football, which is my passion. My LSU Tigers made my life complete last year when they went 15-0 and won a national championship coming out of nowhere. And Joe Burrow had the season
for the ages.
To end all seasons, yes. Now I'm going through this depression because I'm watching play. First of all, we could get into the big debate about which conferences were right to cancel their sport and say we're going to play in the spring. Boy, don't even get me started there. That's for a whole show. We may want to do that for the next one. But what's really disturbing right now is, for me, seeing the players who are choosing to opt out. Not because they are opting out. I have no problem with players opting out because of concerns over COVID-19 or those kinds of things. The thing that I am a little bit bothered by is, for instance, Jamie Newman, the Georgia starting quarterback, opted out on Wednesday, September the 2nd. Jamar Chase and the defensive lineman for LSU, Tyler Shelvin, have opted out just in the past week after working out with their team for probably 2 months. And now you're less than a month from the start of the season, and they're deciding to do that now. And I'm very conflicted, Ryan, because I get it. And for instance, Jamar Chase has nothing to prove. He accomplished everything you could accomplish last year from a team standpoint individually. Jamie Newman was projected to be a 4th or 5th round quarterback prospect. He had everything to gain by playing, decided to sit out and get ready for the pros. But for me, I'm old school, and it feels a little bit like you're abandoning your team at this point. Shoot me down if I'm wrong. But it's like the players who opted out of bowl games. We saw that, and we had to start getting used to that. Are we going to have to start getting used to seeing players? I mean, what do you do if you're on a team and you're midway through the year and the season's not going all that great, and you just decide, okay, I'm out now, I'm done for the rest of the year?
It's an interesting point because I started thinking about this. Is this going to become a norm, or is this strictly because of what's happened with COVID? And because I guess I would be concerned for the underclassmen that can't come out and feel like they have nothing to gain. Because look, football's a violent sport, and these guys, if they want to make sure that they take care of themselves. Now, the Georgia quarterback, I really don't understand what he's doing, because he and everything that I'm reading from draft experts, he could have, if he would have had a good year, he could have climbed himself up to be a top quarterback prospect. And now, without any tape this year,
Yeah.
He's going to go late. It's going to cost him a lot of money.
And he transferred from Wake Forest to come to Georgia to be on a team that was probably going to compete for a national championship. So playing against the top competition, I'm like you. I don't understand it. Again, it's a personal decision. It's his decision. I'm not going to say the kid's wrong. I don't understand the motive for it, and particularly the timing of it.
The thing, like, because I'm trying to think, if I was a dad and I had a son that I knew had a first round grade, I'm not going to, I have a hard time saying, oh no, I would tell him, no, you have to play. Now, I would like to think, as a competitor and an athlete, you always say I would never, let my team down like that. But I think unless you've been in that person's shoes, and you have all that money on the line, and you truly have nothing to gain because you had an amazing year, won a national championship. I guess the question is, why was this decision made now?
What changed?
What changed?
That's the thing. Same thing that goes with the Big Ten and their decisions. What changed from the day that they released their schedule to 3 days later saying we're not playing at all? What changed? Yeah. And then the pressure comes, and now they're kind of back. They're walking it back. That's a whole nother discussion. But I'm really hoping that doesn't start to become a trend in college football, where you see your best players just bail on their team middle of the year, things like that. One last thing. You grew up, I'm a little older than you are, a lot. So I'm a child of I guess I started really getting into sports right around 1970, junior high, starting to really take notice. What year would you say it was when you started to really, really, get the bug and start memorizing the entire lineup of every team that played in the National Football League?
I would guess it was around, because look, so for people that don't know, I'm a huge Denver Broncos fan. My dad raised me that way, so I was a big Bronco fan. I knew all their players.
Don't put this on your dad. That's your own sin there. Stop that.
No, I'm a diehard Bronco fan. But in terms of knowing everybody, like where I became obsessed with players, I probably, around the time I was 9 or 10, so probably the late 80s, 1990, around there is when I really started following and loving big players and collecting baseball cards and all that.
Well, the odd thing about it was about the time that I started to really get into all sports. It was a heyday for New York. And I was a kid from Louisiana, so I didn't realize that you're not supposed to like anybody from New York, first of all. But the basketball team of that period was the Knicks, with Willis Reed and Walt Frazier and Dave DeBusschere and Bill Bradley. I mean, Hall of Famers across the lineup, won the championship.
What happened to the Knicks?
Yeah. And the New York Mets, the Miracle Mets.
Miracle Mets.
And so my very first favorite Major League Baseball player was Tom Seaver. And Tom Seaver passed away on Wednesday, I think, of a combination of dementia and COVID-19. He was 75 years old. But listen to the numbers, Ryan. 311 wins and 205 losses, with a lifetime earned run average of 2.86. And think about what pitching looks like in this day and age. He struck out more than 200 batters in 10 different seasons, which is a National League record that still stands. in April of 1970, he struck out 10 consecutive batters when he faced the San Diego Padres, struck out 10 batters in a row. That's never been done. He had 3,640 strikeouts in a 20-year career, sixth on the all-time list. He had a no-hitter with the Cardinals in 78. And then when he got into the Hall of Fame, he had the highest percentage of ballot votes of anybody in history up until just recently, when Ken Griffey and Mariano Rivera and so forth were named to the Hall. His first year of eligibility, he's on 98.84% of the ballots. So first ballot Hall of Famer, and Nolan Ryan says it was Tom Seaver's leadership that helped him, set him on the course to 324 wins, 7 no-hitters, 5,714 strikeouts. The guy I can't begin. I got to see him pitch in 1977 in the Astrodome, his last game with the New York Mets before he was traded to the Cincinnati Reds. And he was on an all-star pace again that year. And the thing I always remembered about Tom Seaver was, first of all, big, thick body, not a tall guy. He was 6'1", but real thick. Legs were massive. He had this perfect wind-up kick, and then when he released the ball, he always got so low that he'd get dirt on his knee. Now, nobody does that now. Everybody's all arm, which is, I would think, probably why you got so many arm injuries. Yeah. But he used to say if he wasn't pitching well, he'd look and see how dirty his knee was, his right knee was. If his knee wasn't striking the ground, he said, I've got to adjust. Fantastic. I mean, you tell me somebody in your generation that you can compare him to with the kind of numbers I just threw out.
Gosh.
I mean, there have been dominant pitchers, but I can't think of anybody that dominant.
Yeah, and that low of ERA.
Won 3 Cy Youngs, but that was back in a day when you had a lot of 20-game winners, and you had a lot of really Bob Gibson and Ferguson Jenkins, and there was an ace on every team that was a 20-game winner. You don't find that now. Now a guy that wins 12 games can win a Cy Young award.
Well, and they don't pitch as many innings. A guy pitched 5 innings and and then they go to the bullpen.
I think he had 61 shutouts. Now think about the number of complete games a career pitcher is going to have now in the major leagues. If they go 4 innings, people are clapping. Hey, that was a great start. It just blows my mind. It was one of my great heroes there.
And I was listening to Rich Eisen today, and he was talking about that for people that, like I never got to see Tom Seaver play, but he was saying people that don't know, if you think about the entire history of New York sport legends, that Tom Seaver is at the top of the list, like with Mickey Mantle and all the New York greats.
Yeah. I mean, you put him right up there with Joe Namath. Whichever your favorite Nick was, that'd be a hard one to pick. Maybe Willis Reed. But they'd probably say Patrick Ewing now because they've already forgotten about Willis Reed, that generational bias kind of thing. But that one hit me hard because that was a guy that I grew up watching and just was in awe of him every time. And then to get to see him pitch in person 2 or 3 times when he was still at the peak of his career. I saw him again with the Mets, and I saw him a couple of times with the Reds when they would come to the Astrodome. And just a fantastic pitcher, and I'm just thoroughly depressed. I'm watching my heroes die on a daily basis here lately. And so it's kind of hard, but and you'll see
it's been a rough week.
20, boy, no kidding. I'm telling you, with Chadwick Boseman going down.
Coach Thompson.
Yes, John Thompson.
We're losing legends and really talented people.
So it's been a tough week, but I thank God for the opportunity to see a guy like Tom Seaver, the professional that he was, and the standard of excellence that he had, and just, I mean, he was a gamer, showed up, and 300 innings every year kind of thing. I mean, just an unbelievable pitcher. I'm going to give you the last word as we wrap up. Anything that we've left out that was on your mind when we came into this, and are you regretting the process that we've already started here.
Yeah, I really want to know how many people actually made it through this entire discussion. So if you did,
you get
thank
an
you. You're
award.
awesome.
We haven't figured out what that award's going to be just yet, but you'll get an award.
No, I had fun. This is fun getting to talk, talk sports. There's a lot of things I don't miss about broadcasting. It's a very stressful environment. Bryan knows all too well. But I do miss the platform of getting to talk sports because I always have so many opinions and thoughts. So this has been a fun little outlet, even if it's just for the two of us to hear each other talk. It's been fun doing that.
Well, what we're going to do, at least for the time being, is we'll post these on YouTube and then post them out on social media. So if you happen to stumble upon this, in a drunken rage or something, maybe you're on medicinal marijuana and you just thought, hey, maybe I'll watch these two guys. Feel free to share, make a comment, tell your friends to either watch it or avoid it like the plague, whichever. Reaction's good. No reaction is the worst thing. So whatever, if you think we're just a couple of idiots, say so. I'd much prefer that. But we'll kind of see how this evolves over time and try to do this at least on a weekly basis for a little while and then see if we get more than 2 views. And that's not talking about your 2 daughters. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that our wives or?
Well, I know that ain't happening, and the other good thing about YouTube is that they don't show you time viewed. So if your kid's checked out in the first 30 seconds,
so just watch 5 seconds and
we still get the view, So, hey, Ryan, thanks very much, man. We appreciate it. And again, thanks to, all 2 of you out there who are watching, and we'll do this again. And we've got plenty to talk about with high school football and the stops and starts and people losing games and then getting on buses to go play anywhere, anytime, just to get a game in. We got a lot of things we can talk about coming up.
Yeah, NFL starting.
That too.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thanks very much for watching, and we will talk to you down the line.